Hello Horlick. This video is going to be about some of the new changes in the EE system, and I thought a video might be a good way to go through discussing some of those changes. But if you do have any questions, feel free to send me an email. I'd be happy to meet with you in person or have a conversation with you to kind of explain these changes. So let's get right to it. Basically, the whole point of these changes is to try to promote more of a growth model instead of just something that we do and is hoops that we have to jump through. So some of the changes entail a summary year consisting of a self-assessment, the teacher self-assessment, creating an SLO and a PPG. And what's kind of different about the SLO and the PPG is it's a little more focused on setting goals, collaborating with other staff members, and then gathering feedback and making observations as you go through that process. In the supporting year, there really has not been a lot of changes to that. So if you're in a supporting year this school year, you're really doing the same stuff that you've always done if you've been in a supporting year, which is filling out the self-assessment, writing an SLO and a PPG, and then you get one observation from your administrator. If you like that in a chart format, this is kind of a nice tool for looking at what you have to do if you're in a supporting or summary year. In your supporting year, which is found here in this mint green color, you would have to fill out the self-assessment and MLP. And then if we head back over into the mint green color, you'd have a little bit of a planning session either with a peer or with me or someone and craft an SLO and a PPG. You do that in MLP only. MLP stands for My Learning Plan. And also in your supporting year, you can expect to probably receive at least one mini observation from your administrator. The summer year is a little bit more elaborate. You still have to do the self-assessment in MLP, that's still true, but you will have actually a planning session with your administrator to go through and fill out the SLO and PPG forms. Both of these forms are filled out in MLP, but the new piece is that there is a Google Doc for the PPG and the SLO that you actually fill out. And I'll go through that in a little bit, but that's kind of the new change is that we have you documenting your progress in a Google Doc, and MLP is more of just a piece where you kind of put your end findings and you submit those forms at the very end of the year. In your summary year, you can expect 90 minutes of observations, at least 90 minutes of observations, and those can come in the form of mini observations or they can come in the form of longer observations. From what I've gathered, most administrators are planning to do a couple of minis on people, so you probably can expect to see them popping in and out of your classroom throughout the school year. One other little change in the summer year with the PPG is that you'll have to choose two kind of like action plan items that you're going to take on. And it's not just limited to this list, but this is just some suggestions that was pushed out from the district. One is that you could consult me and you and I kind of work together for a while and maybe create some lessons. Maybe I go into your classroom and model some things, or I watch you teach and just give you some feedback. And that's just referred to as a coaching cycle. So that's something that falls under an acceptable action plan within the PPG form. Another thing you could do would be a PLC data steward. So in the academy meetings, you could be in charge of data and really using data to drive change in instruction. You could be an instructional lead in the academy meetings. And so what that could basically mean is like maybe you run a professional development session in the academy meeting. Maybe there's something you do that's really cool in your classroom and you want to share it with your colleagues, and you do a little shindig around that in the academy meeting and share that information with your colleagues. You could observe a peer, so go into a different teacher's classroom and just see how they teach and see what you can take away from that. And then you can see there's some other options under observe a peer. You could form a committee, get into a book study, but really it's not limited to just this. These are just some good suggestions of options for your PPG. So if we take a look at this slide, these are really the big changes for summary year teachers. You're going to set a goal and develop an action plan in collaboration with your evaluating principal, and those goals will be documented on a Google form as well as an MLP. You may have a mid-year conference with your evaluating principal just to kind of touch base on how you're doing with collecting data for your SLO, and maybe just kind of touch base on how you're doing with your PPG as well. It's not a requirement, but that mid-year and end-of-year data that you're putting into the Google form that I will show you shortly is what you actually, in the end, submit into My Learning Plan at the end of your summer year. Once all that's done, you'll have an end-of-year conference with your evaluator, and you'll get a composite score still from the Danielson framework, and that kind of sums it up. Notice there are a lot less in terms of artifacts that you have to upload. Really, the only 2 artifacts that you really must upload are those 2 Google Docs that I'll show you in a moment. But that doesn't mean you can't upload more. You certainly can upload some other artifacts. So if you're doing something really neat and you have an artifact for it, take a picture of it, or if it's a form, scan it in, and you certainly can upload that, because in the end, the artifacts are there to help make a case for why you are an awesome teacher and you should get a higher score within that Danielson framework. So these are the forms for the summer year teacher. These are the Google Docs. I'm actually going to hop out of the slideshow and go into this. If you click these links, it's going to force you to make a copy of your own form. So what I mean by that is you'll get a screen that looks like this, and it's going to force you to make a copy of this document so that you actually are the owner of it and you can modify it and adjust it. So that's kind of nice. It'll be in your own Google Drive. So just be aware of that when I share the slideshow out. If you click either of these links on this slide, it's going to force you to make a copy. So this form is called the Teachers as Professionals form, and this form is where you actually will write your SLO and your PPG. Writing a good SLO requires that you focus on something academic, so an academic standard in one of your classes. It should be written to reflect growth with all your students, and it should be in a SMART goal format. So you need to be collecting data on whatever your SLO is, and it has to be something that's measurable. For the PPG, again, that is something that you decide in terms of what you want to do in terms of growth as a professional. There are some options down here that I listed in the slideshow. It's not limited to just this, but these are some ideas of good things that you could take on as a PPG, and you're supposed to pick 2 of them if you're in a summer year. So that would go in these 2 boxes, SLO in this box, PPG in this box. Down here where it says Danielson Rubric Components Focus, you would identify what part of the Danielson rubric does your SLO revolve around, and then also what part of the Danielson rubric does your PPG revolve around. This isn't too difficult to do because most things that are good for teaching and instruction can generally align to the Danielson rubric. And if you're having issues with any of this stuff, feel free to contact me. I also have a video on how to write SLOs and PPGs that I am sharing along with this video, so feel free to check that out if you are struggling on how you write an SLO and a PPG. So this is one form that eventually gets turned into your administrator and uploaded into the My Learning Plan. There is another form called the Action Plan form, and that form looks like this. And basically it just kind of, as the title suggests, it's actions for your SLO and your PPG. So to accomplish your SLO, what actions are you going to do in order to make that happen? And to accomplish your PPG, what actions are you going to do to make that happen? And this form is kind of used as a piece to drive discussion with you and your evaluating administrator. So this is the form that you'll take out and sit down and talk with them potentially at the mid-year. That's what MOY stands for, middle of year progress. How are you doing on your SLO and how are you doing on your PPG? And then EOY is your end of year status. How did you do on your SLO and your PPG? Did you meet it? Did you not meet it? And then there's a spot for you to sign it and for your administrator to sign it. So those are really the 2 big changes with the summer year, is that you have these 2 Google Docs that you need to fill out and then upload into My Learning Plan at the very end of your summer year cycle. If we take a look at some of the deadlines for a supporting year teacher and a summer year teacher, there's not a lot to actually remember. October 18th is a date where administrators here have asked that your self-reflection, which occurs in MLP, your SLO and your PPG are completed. Whether you're in a summer year or a supporting year, you have those babies done and turned into My Learning Plan. Again, if you're in a summer year, the SLO and the PPG, you do it in My Learning Plan as well as on the Google Doc. So there's a little more that you have to do on your summer year. You also have a conference with your evaluating principal around that action plan that you're writing, which is that Google Doc that I showed earlier. The other date that's important to remember is kind of just towards the end of the year. I don't have a specific date yet, but generally speaking, it's about mid to the end of May when all of this stuff is due. So if you're in a supporting year, your SLO and PPG data would be documented in My Learning Plan and just submitted and finalized. In a summer year, same time, mid to end of May, basically all of this stuff is due. The SLO, the PPG, and that action plan form that you've been working with on your administrator. Hopefully that helps a little bit and provides a little bit more clarity as to what's expected of you as a teacher. Again, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to reach out and ask for some help. I'd be happy to do that. Hope you all have a great day and thanks for tuning in. Bye now.